The Chicago Bulls were one of the busiest teams in the offseason. They proved when trading for Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline of the 2021 NBA season that this team were in win-now mode. And the moves that they made this offseason only further proves that, bringing in DeMar DeRozan on a 3-year $85 million deal. They brought in Lonzo Ball on a 4-year $85 million deal. And then they brought in league favourite, and as a Laker fan, I know a fan favourite, the Caruso Ball Mamba, the big baller brand, or some people even call him the GOAT. Alex Caruso was brought in to the Bulls on a 4-year $37 million deal. And as a Laker fan, that hurts, but it's a good move for the Bulls, I think, in my opinion. And Caruso, he's getting paid, but we'll talk about them later, Caruso later. But then you add on all these players I spoke about, the Vucevic who was signed last year, and then this year's signings in DeMar, Lonzo and Caruso. You add those players to the likes of Zach LaVine, who isn't getting talked as much as other stars around the league, but I think he's nearly in that level where you can call him a legit star. He's definitely the number one option in this team, clearly the best player in this team, and he had a great year last year for the Bulls, averaging 27.5 points per game, 5 assists per game, 5 boards a game, on 41% shooting from 3 on 8 threes a game. Zach LaVine, in my opinion, he's only going to get better and better. He's 26, he's entering his prime, he's a great scorer, he's a great 3-point shooter now. He's no longer just a dunk merchant who you see in the dunk contest. He's added a lot to his offensive game. Obviously defense isn't his strongest point, but they've got some other players like a Caruso who can do that for him. Then you've also got a potential 6th man of the year candidate in Kobe White, who is already on the roster. I think he'll, as I said, become a 6th man for this Bulls team and do a pretty good job doing that. Last year for the Bulls, he averaged 15 points per game and 5 assists a game. So Kobe White, you've got 6-man material in that guy there, and it'll be interesting to see how Kobe White does leading the second unit. The potential starting lineup for the 2021-2022 Chicago Bulls, in my eyes, is obviously a point guard, Lonzo Ball. No explanation needed there. Shooting guard, obviously Zach LaVine, self-explanatory. Small forward, I think will be Patrick Williams, and then power forward DeMar DeRozan. They could easily switch, but DeMar DeRozan did play some power forward minutes last year for the Spurs, so I could see him playing there again this year. And then at centre, obviously, you have Nikola Vucevic. And as I said, you got Kobe White as your 6th man. You've also got Alex Caruso as your backup shooting guard, who can also do a bit of ball handling. As a Lakers fan, last year was a really tough season with all the injuries we got. But one thing I can tell you about Caruso is he is improving on his ball handling, becoming more, being able to run the offense a bit more. Definitely able to do pick and roll now. We'll see if he's asked to do a larger role nowadays in Chicago. Maybe he has to do a bit more ball handling, or maybe just on the court for defense. We'll wait and see. And obviously he can also hit the 3 as well. But not everybody is convinced of the 2022 Chicago Bulls. The DeMar DeRozan move has been questioned by many, as they did give up some assets for the free agent in a sign and trade. Thaddeus Young, who I think was an underrated player for them last year, he left the Bulls in that DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, and also giving up some picks. And the argument is that DeMar DeRozan is being paid like a number 1 guy, and he's 31, 32, but he's clearly not a number 1 guy in this league. Prime DeMar DeRozan with the Raptors, I think you can say he was the number 1 guy, but the Raptors just kept choking in the playoffs. Is he a number 2 guy? In my opinion, I don't think so. I love DeMar DeRozan as a player, but I just think ideally you'd have a DeMar DeRozan, especially at this stage in his career, as a number 3 guy. And the argument, of course, of this being a bad move is that he's getting paid like a number 1 guy. But, I think this can easily work because DeMar, in his time in San Antonio, even though they didn't have great team success, DeMar DeRozan improved his passing and is facilitating a lot. He's now deadly in the pick and roll. He's still a great scorer, a great slasher to the rim. And he's also obviously still very, very good at the mid-range game. So I think DeMar DeRozan can easily work in Chicago. And what I'd say to people saying that DeMar is getting heavily overpaid, maybe he is, I think he is too. He's getting paid a lot of money for a guy who is not even an all-star at the moment. But when you're a team like Chicago, but like the Chicago Bulls, and you haven't been contending in a good few years, you have to overpay to get some good players. They're not going to take a discount to come to you guys. So all in all, I think it's a good move. DeMar, as I said, last year in San Antonio, I think he had a pretty good year and was an all-star snub. Last year for the Spurs, he averaged 21.6 points per game, 7 assists per game, shooting 49% from the field. Now obviously you're going to get no floor spacing with DeMar, but I think that department is covered by other players. And DeMar, it'll be interesting to see how him and Zach LaVine work together. Who's going to be holding the ball more? Obviously then you got Lonzo as well, but I think we'll get into Lonzo in a minute. I think he can affect the game off the ball as well. But I think this DeMar DeRozan move is going to be very, very interesting to see how he does with the Bulls. And then on to Alex Caruso. As much as I love Caruso, as I've said, it is a slight overpay in my opinion for Caruso. There's a reason why the Lakers didn't go the extra mile to pay him, because they could have. It just would have meant they would have went deeper into the luxury tax. But what I've seen in Caruso these last few years, he's one of the best defensive guards in the NBA. And the Bulls, they do need a bit of defense, and Caruso will give you that defense. He's a very intense player, scrappy player to fight for those loose balls. So I think that's how the game Caruso's covered. The only concern I have about Caruso is what role will he be asked to play for this Bulls team? Because with the Lakers, he had a very specific role to play for them. Just play some good defense and then stand on the wing in the corner and just knock down a couple of threes. I think he shot over 40% from three last year, but he only took around 2 threes a game. So we're interested to see, can he keep that up? But I'm going to be very interested in watching this Bulls team as a whole. People like DeRozan and Caruso as well, because I want to see what kind of role Caruso will be asked to play for this Bulls team. And if it is a bigger role than he was asked to play with the Lakers, is he able to fill that role? Onto a guy who I think is able to fill a big role is Lonzo Ball. I think obviously everyone agrees around the league that this was a home run move for the Bulls. I think they did a great job bringing him in. He's only 24 years old, so he's still not even in his prime yet. And he's come a long way since his Laker days. He's become a very good 3-point shooter in this league. And of course we know how great a passer and facilitator he is. He's also a pretty solid defender, so you don't need to worry about him being a weak spot on the defensive end. He can do his job there as well. And, at 24, as I said, he's only going to get better. Lonzo Ball is only going to improve. I think he shot around 38% from 3 last year. He's going to improve there. And as I said earlier on, the best part about Lonzo Ball is he doesn't have to have the ball in his hands to be effective. We saw that last year with the Pelicans. Zion, near the end of the season, ended up playing like a point forward role where he had the ball in his hands and Lonzo stood on the wing and took up different areas on the court. And he played very, very well in that position. That got him paid $85 million. And I think the Bulls don't need to worry about him. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan will be handling the ball a lot. And I think Lonzo can still impact the game, even with the ball out of his hands. And then, of course, when you need him to run the offense, he can definitely do that as well. A great passer and a pretty solid defender as well. So Lonzo Ball at 24, only going to improve over the next 4 years. A home run move, in my opinion. The Bulls, I think all in all, they have a very good 7 or 8 players on this roster, with a good mix of floor spacing. You got people like Nikola Vucevic as your stretch 5. He can stretch the floor. Obviously LaVine, a very good 3-point shooter. He can do that for you. And Lonzo Ball can also knock down a 3-pointer. They got great defensive pieces as well in Patrick Williams, a number 4 overall pick in the 2020 draft. A big season for Patrick Williams. I think he's going to take on the heaviest load on the defensive end, but he will have backup from Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, who can also, put in a good shift on the defensive end. So Patrick Williams, though, a young player, a lot of responsibility on Patrick Williams, as I said, to carry the defensive end, because Vucevic, DeMar, LaVine, they're not the best defenders of all time, or even, they're probably around average at best, those defenders. And then, of course, they got some great scorers in this team as well, like DeMar DeRozan. So I think DeMar DeRozan is still up there in the conversation with some of the best scorers in the league today. Obviously, Kevin Durant is a good bit ahead of him, but he's like a tier 2 top-level scorer. Obviously, Zach LaVine, I think he's going to get better and better. Very good scorer. Nikola Vucevic, one of the best scoring big men, up there with a Joel Embiid for scoring, and even a Jokic. And obviously, Kobe White, coming off the bench, will bring a scoring punch as well. The only things that the Bulls are really lacking is in rebounding, as nobody averaged over 10 rebounds per game on this roster, except for Nikola Vucevic, who averaged 11.7 boards per game last year, along with his 23 points per game. That's what I'm talking about. Vucevic, he doesn't get talked about as much as other players in this Bulls team, and I haven't mentioned him as much as others because he's been there a couple of months. But Vuce, I think if he can play well, if he can fulfill his role at a high level and continue to play at an All-Star level, as he was an All-Star last year, this Bulls team could really do something good next year. And also, I think rim protection will be an issue for this Bulls team. I don't think they have enough of it, to be honest. Vooch isn't an elite rim protector. Tony Bradley off the bench, would he be good enough? I don't know. But what can the Chicago Bulls do in the 2022 NBA season? Well, the East has become a lot stronger in recent years, and this year it's not got any weaker. The Bucks, reigning champions, the Heat will be up there. The Nets, title favourites, the Lakers, the 76ers, I still think will be good with or without Ben Simmons. The Celtics, I think, will be better than they were last year. The Hawks, they don't get talked about as much as other teams because they are the Atlanta Hawks, but they made a conference finals last year, and I think they'll be up there again. And the New York Knicks, again, haven't been talked about as much, but I think they have improved from last year. I see the Bulls finishing in the middle of this pack that I just mentioned. Their ceiling, I think will be the 4th seed. That's if everything clicks. That's if DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine and Vucevic can play at their all-star levels that I know they can play at, and Lonzo does his part as well. And I think the 7th or 8th seed is the lowest they'll go. I think the 7th seed is most realistic prediction for me where the Bulls will finish. But you know, in the playoffs, then that's what it's all about. I think their ceiling in the playoffs will be the 2nd round. I think that'll be a step forward for the Bulls after missing out the playoffs over many years. But we'll have to wait and see. But tell me, guys, what do you think of the 2022 Chicago Bulls? Are you a fan of what they did this offseason, or are you one of those guys that say they've overpaid people, that aren't even that good, and they're not, maybe they won't even make the playoffs in your eyes? There's some great teams in the East. I didn't even mention the Hornets or the Wizards. I think they'll be good. So tell me, guys, in the comments below, how good do you think the Chicago Bulls will be next season? And all that said, thanks for watching the video, of course. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and then with all that said, I'm out of here.